The Beyond Power Voltra isn't just a rack-mounted cable system that can do everything a functional trainer can, it's possibly the most versatile cable system there is. I can attach this to almost anything and take it just about anywhere. The Voltra is essentially a compact, lightweight cable machine. This has 200 pounds of resistance in a tiny box. You clip it in, adjust the weight, and you're good to go. What makes this machine special though is that Beyond Power has built up an ecosystem of accessories for this that allow it to work in so many different ways. So whether you built a home gym because you were sick of getting weird looks at your local Planet Fitness, or even if you've got it all, this machine can do things a weight stack will never be able to. That doesn't mean it's the end all be all. If you're looking for an influencer to tell you it's gonna change your life, that you'll be overhead pressing 3 plates in no time, I'm not him. The Voltra is very expensive. My dual setup costs thousands of dollars, so get it all out in the comments now and know that this isn't the only option out there. While we find out if there's enough here to justify that price tag, just remember that hitting that subscribe button will take you a lot less time than what I put into testing this and making this video. The number one question we've been asked is, does this feel like a weight stack? Well, I've tested this against my Aries, Rogue's twin stacks, and other systems, and I'd say sometimes. So let's find out if close enough is good enough. I should start this off by saying, when this first came out, I had my doubts. I was one of the first people Beyond Power reached out to back in 2023. But after reviewing the Unitree pump, which started overheating after we posted our review, which I've since taken down, there was our Gemera video, that one worked great until it didn't. Another wasted review. You're starting to see a trend here. I've reviewed other smart tech and the results haven't always been fantastic. Smart tech often has subscriptions, which I'm not a fan of. Luckily with the Voltra, there's no subscription. Once you buy it, you're good for life, or it's life. Here's the thing, telling us the Voltra has a precision direct drive motor and a durable high quality build doesn't mean much. Anything a company publishes is an advertisement. And even if I might have peeked inside and voided the warranty on a few $1,000s worth of equipment, it's hard to know how long this will last. So yes, it has a direct drive motor, meaning the motor connects directly to the load, in this case the cable, so there's no transmission, no gearing, and reducing complexity results in a more efficient system with a longer lifespan, but it still has a lifespan. Components like the cable, motor, and battery will wear down over time. Luckily, some of that's replaceable. I will say the Voltra has by far the best internal and external build quality I've seen on a system like this. With an aluminum frame, magnesium alloy exterior shell, and Beyond Power using high-end components throughout, there's no doubting this is very well engineered. The motor may make it the 8 to 10 years Beyond Power says it will. So what you're weighing out with the Voltra is, do all the features and things you can do with it that you can't with other equipment outweigh the price and the fact that it won't last forever? Listen, Rogue's twin stack will outlive me. My kids can deal with it when I'm dead and gone. With the Voltra, you may be better off think of it like a gaming console or a computer. It's king today, it may still work perfectly and you'll love it years from now, and even though it's a fantastic product, someday it'll die and you'll move on to the next version or an alternative. The next big question is, how does it feel? I don't think this feels identical to an actual cable machine, but it's not quite that simple. For most movements, if you're not paying attention, you probably won't notice much of a difference between the two. After all, you're probably not that weird guy online who spent hours going between movements and machines deciding how to describe your feelings on a piece of gym equipment. I'm sorry, Voltra, it's not you, it's me. In reality, it depends on the movement. For heavy exercises, you'd have to be really nitpicking to complain about the difference between a weight stack and the Voltra. The same thing can be said for quick movements. It's responsive and applies consistent resistance regardless of orientation or placement. A stack uses gravity as its resistance, and a well-done cable system has no noticeable friction. So starting, stopping, slowing down, or speeding up is all a very fluid experience, and since it's what we're used to after doing thousands of reps with cable systems, it's what we think of as natural feeling. The Voltra is using a motor and software to emulate that, and most times it does very well. The software does seem to compensate for momentum and always tries to keep the resistance consistent, which is one of the reasons the Voltra can feel heavier than a stack. But I measured the resistance and it's pretty accurate. Also, this synthetic braided cable isn't sheathed like you're used to. So if you want a reason to hate it, besides the price, then you could argue if you're paying attention, you can feel the cable winding and unwinding. Think of it like a rope winding around something, because that's essentially what this is. That being said, up against this rack, Rogue's Twin Stack, or Reps Aries, and other high-end cable systems, no, it's not as smooth, but it's still pretty damn good. If you don't believe me, then feel free to use my affiliate link to buy a few Voltras and my rack setups that cost me a ton of money so you can do your own side-by-side testing and tell me I'm wrong. One of the things that impresses me about the Voltra is how easy it is to set up and use. Depending on your setup, you pick one of their many mounts, turn your Voltra on, clip it into the mount, you'll hear it engage and lock itself onto the mount. It's a very straightforward and quick process, and once it's on, it's rock solid. And I should emphasize the solid part, because the first few times I went heavy with this, I wondered if I'd end up knocking myself out as I pulled on it. But after a few sets of, I guess what we'll call pull-up twirlies and messing around with it in very scientific ways, I'm convinced it's not going anywhere. There's quite a few modes that we'll cover, but we'll just start with the one I spend the majority of my time in, weight training. One click and you're in. I'm just gonna load the weight so you can see better on camera, and then you just scroll your finger to set your weight, and it's that simple. Going from lightweight to heavy or vice versa can be a little slow as you have to cycle through every increment, but you can just use the smart pin setting to type in whatever weight you want. This is 19 pounds right here. It's quiet. Maybe you can just hear that motor, and it's easy. I can even press these buttons at the top or bottom to jump 5 pounds at a time. If that doesn't work for you, a simple click on this circle lets me change the increments to 1, 5, or 10 pounds, or you can switch to step mode where you switch weights using buttons rather than scrolling. The customization is insane on this thing. I can even change the startup screen to my favorite YouTuber. Or you can be an old man and ignore all the bells and whistles. Honestly, it works well without all the extras, but if you're not interested in the unique things this can do, it'll be harder to justify the price because it's the extras that make this unique. Before we get into all the modes and features, let me show you two of my favorite things about the Voltra. Number one is that you can set the resistance to less than 10 pounds. Almost every weight stack built for a home gym starts at 10 pounds, and that just doesn't work for my wife on certain exercises. The Voltra starts at 5 pounds and can be adjusted in 1 pound increments all the way up to 200 pounds, which is awesome for her. It's great for micro loading, and it also makes this great for rehab or physical therapy, especially since it's light, portable, and can mount to almost anything. Number two is that I found ways to use this that are not only easier than with a weight stack, but they're things a weight stack just can't do. If you've ever tried getting into position with 150 pounds loaded for rows, you know exactly what I mean. With the Voltra, I can set the starting point of an exercise to make it easier to get into position. And with over 9 feet of cable travel, that gives me a lot of freedom in my setups. I found this to be helpful with a lot of different exercises, but the real benefit with setting the starting point is that my wife isn't dropping the handles, which then fly back and smash into my equipment. The Beyond Power Voltra, helping to keep couples together since 2023. My favorite thing to play around with is changing the resistance profile of an exercise, which can be done with a few taps. Maybe I want the eccentric portion of a curl to be harder, so I add 20 pounds to that part of the movement. Or maybe the lockout of your bench press is a weak point for you, so you want to add resistance at the top of the movement using chains mode. You can even use the inverse chains mode to make the start of the movement harder, which can help challenge you on rows, for example, where you're typically stronger during the stretch portion of the lift, and you can combine those resistance modes if you feel like it. Beyond Power is also releasing custom resistance curves where you can tweak the resistance profile. I probably won't use that feature much because I feel like I have everything I need already, but imagine the resistance on your leg extension leg curl machine isn't perfect. Well, now it is. And it's great to see them continually developing and evolving the Voltra. During use, it displays real-time data to the screen, which of course, like everything, can be configured, although I tend to leave that off and have it show me my sets and reps. That's another good example of you making this as complex or as simple as you want. If you want to tinker and see all your data broken down in the app, go for it. If you just want to lift, you can. You may have noticed before when I entered weight training mode, the weight is dulled out on the side over here. That's how they indicate the weight isn't loaded yet. This is useful if you need to set up for specific exercises. So let's say I wanted to use this for bench press. I wouldn't want 100 pounds loaded as I set up, but when I'm ready, I just tap the screen and the weight's loaded. Now, the first time I did that, I thought, wait, if it's my first warm-up set for bench press, so 400 pounds, and I engage one side, it's gonna flip the bar. Well, if you have two of these, you can use twin mode to sync them. With twin mode on, as you set one Voltra, the other copies it. Twin mode can be activated through the app, or you could just sync them on the Voltras themselves, which is one of the things I like about these. I don't need my cell phone out to work out with this. You don't need to use the app for it to function. Originally, twin mode had issues keeping things smooth between the two Voltras, but the beauty of software is you can update it, and it works very well now. It's designed for bilateral exercises, but I've also used twin mode when I want the Voltras to act independently, and I don't feel like manually setting the weights and modes twice. It's a nice feature, but as you've seen, changing weights and modes is pretty quick, and I've had times where it takes time for one Voltra to find the other, so I only sync them if I need to. We've really only scratched the surface of what you can do with these. Beyond Power has done a fantastic job of evolving not only their ecosystem of mounts and accessories, but the software as well. Their latest update added a ton of functionality with additions like inverse chains mode and isometric test mode. Winnie and I have actually had a ton of fun messing with isometric testing. It's a way to measure strength and weakness as well as progression, and is often used in rehab and sports training. Admittedly, it's not a mode I'll use often, but it's the perfect way to show the Voltra's versatility. Many lifters will find it useful, and if I'm a coach, trainer, or physical therapist, I can gather a lot of useful data and insights to guide me, which is true of all these modes. Take isokinetic mode, for example. Unlike isometric training, where there's no movement, in isokinetic training, we're moving at a constant rate regardless of the force applied. So the Voltra adapts to keep the speed the same, providing a safe, controlled way for you to apply a maximum force throughout the entire movement. Think of a deadlift. You may have issues breaking the weight off the floor, but once you're moving, you utilize that momentum in the lift. With isokinetic training, there is no momentum. It's humbling. You can't cheat your way through this. It's a common training and testing technique you'll see in physical therapy to improve strength and endurance throughout the entire range of motion, and something you may have seen in high-end athletic facilities. The issue is it typically requires massive and incredibly expensive specialized machines. So until now, it's not something you'd really see in a home gym. Whether you utilize those modes is based on your wants and needs, but with something like this, you won't be limited. So maybe some of these features don't interest me today, but I have no idea what my training will look like in the future. So yeah, I don't really use damper mode often, which is a velocity-based training method used for explosive strength, except at home, we're the only ones laughing at our lack of power and coordination. I'd say the same thing about the assistance toggle, where the Voltra will tweak the resistance if you're struggling, or resistance band mode, which, well, emulates a resistance band, except think of it as an incredibly customizable resistance band. Where I do find the Voltra a bit lacking in features is with the Beyond Plus app. Admittedly, some of that's because I'm an Android user and there's no Android version of the app yet. It's still in development. And I get it, Androids only have a 70% global market share, so just ignore me in the corner looking like my 95-year-old grandfather trying to read on his iPad. The nice thing about the Voltra is they can and have quickly updated the software. So while the app feels a little bare bones and it hasn't always synced my data, it has all the important functionality. But if you're looking for guided workouts and programming, I'd say it's still in its infancy. Luckily, you don't need the app for it to function. I actually prefer not having my phone out while I work out, and everything outside of drop sets, custom resistance curves, and collecting workout data and displaying it with cute little graphs works without the app. If you want to try AI-generated workouts or creating your own, and if you want to keep track of every lift, you can. Or you can just be like me, an elderly member of society that doesn't want to learn anything new and still use this. By now, you've probably noticed me attaching this to random stuff to demonstrate its versatility. Beyond Power has developed quite a few mounts to make this work on almost anything. Admittedly, strapping these to my Rogue twin stack is a bit silly, but I'm not getting yelled at for working out inside Walmart again. True story. So just believe me when I say, with the right mount, you can put these just about anywhere. The issue is, which do you pick? Well, I've got a few favorites. My most used mount is the sliding mount. Think of it like a universal cable trolley system. Pull the pop pin and just lock it into whichever position you want. It's also pretty compact, allowing you to place it higher or lower on a rack than a traditional trolley. It's built to fit nearly any 5/8 or 1-inch rack. Just pick the size you need. It's also a good example of how clever their engineering is. Sure, it's lined with UHMW, so it's not scratching up your rack, but every trolley has that. This has a tightening knob, which when combined with the ability to adjust the pop pin's position, allows this to be mounted in any direction and fit on both metric and customary racks, regardless of the differences in their measurements. It's easy to get on and off the rack, but does take 2 hands to unlock, which is great because no matter how much your kid tries to destroy your equipment, they won't be able to. The strap mount is the other one I use quite a bit and may be a better choice if you tend to make it a habit of trying to fit it into tight or weird places. This mount allows you to, well, strap the Voltra onto just about anything. It's basically a seat belt, and if a seat belt can save your life in a car crash, it's probably strong enough for your lifts. While it sounds simple, and it is, it's a great example of the build quality and attention to detail Beyond Power has put into everything surrounding the Voltra. They're using titanium and aluminum on their mounts, they all have protective liners, and the handle locking system on the strap mount helps tighten it down, but also makes it easy to get off. It's also a great example of their prices because for as much as I like this mount, I don't feel like it's worth $250. More on those prices in a minute though. While those are my favorites, there are others. The bar mount allows you to attach your Voltra to a pull-up bar or a weight horn. It screws on and comes with adapters to make it fit various diameters. The adaptive mount features the world's most over-engineered nut, but it lets you mount your Voltra to racks that don't conform to typical rack sizes. And of course, Beyond Power has other accessories and mounts that will help you keep your status as the neighborhood alpha. While they all have a premium look and feel to them, they're also expensive. $40 for a single handle with a plastic and rubber grip is a lot when a pair of Rep Steel D handles cost $45 shipped. That's what you're weighing out, the incredible build quality and absurd functionality versus the price and longevity. I haven't even covered all the things you can do with it, and we're pretty far into this review. I think this is the threshold where if you're still watching, you have to subscribe. The Voltra is very well done. I doubt there's a harsher critic or bigger skeptic in the review space than me, and it's won me over. Something like this may very well be the future of many home gyms. Here's the thing. One of these units costs $2,100 and you still need attachments and a mount. For most people, this just doesn't make sense. My dual Voltra setup with sliding mounts is just under $5,000. My Rogue Twin Stack only costs a little more than that, or at least it used to before my video blew up and Rogue increased the price 30%. I'll be the first to admit this is probably the coolest thing I have in this gym. But if I didn't get it for free, I don't think I could justify the price. Technology will evolve and alternatives will come out. The Mayak Go promises similar capabilities. It has a higher max resistance of 220 pounds. And after talking with Mayak for almost a year now and closely watching the development as we prepare for our review, at around half the price, if you're interested in the Voltra, that's another one I'd keep an eye on. Will it be as polished or well done? Only time will tell. The thing is, with tech like this, I don't need it. My space is loaded, but I still find myself tinkering with it, finding new ways to use it, and integrating it into my workouts. But before you spam my affiliate link to support the channel because you love our content and appreciate the work we put in, I've got a few concerns for you to mull over. Mainly durability and repairability. In an ideal world, I'd like this to be built in more of a modular fashion, meaning if the motor goes or I crack the screen, I can buy a new part and replace it myself. Now, there are some components like the cable and battery that can be replaced by the user, but the first time I tried a heavy pull, I remember being mid-rep thinking, wait, what if I drop this? In a battle of attachment versus Voltra, the attachment would win. You can add a screen protector, which, much like with your cell phone, may save the day, but for this much money, I feel like it should already come with one. In fairness to Beyond Power, I've been pretty rough with mine and it's been fine, but it's not shockproof and we're in a gym. So if you break that screen, much like your cell phone, you're gonna have to send it to one of their service centers to replace it. Although technically it still will work through the app without the screen. It's one of the things that makes me wonder about longevity. The Voltra comes with a 1-year warranty, which doesn't exactly instill confidence regarding its lifespan. I know in the community, the Voltra gets rave reviews from anyone who's bought one, and you can purchase an extended warranty giving you 3 years of coverage, but I think that matching the 2-year warranty period the EU and UK get would give me more peace of mind. It begs the question, what about the cable and battery lifespan? The Voltra uses a lithium-ion battery pack, and they degrade over time. How quickly depends on a lot of factors. A quality lithium-ion pack can make it a few thousand charging cycles, and based on Winnie and I working out with this 4 times a week, we found when we're both using the Voltra extensively, it makes it almost a week before needing to be charged. So you're probably looking at a lifespan of at least a few years. It does charge quickly with the included USB-C charger, and you can leave it plugged in, but it's something you have to factor in. Imagine coming out to work out and the battery's dead. Or how would you feel if you have to replace a $400 battery after a few years? The cable can also wear down. I will say the cable is solid. I've hung off it and put my own safety on the line for you, showing off once again my high IQ. And mine has no signs of fraying or wearing down after months of use. Luckily, at $40, it's fairly cheap to replace, and I love that Beyond Power is listening to feedback and providing replacement parts because originally they didn't. Still, potentially having to replace this is a concern. If the things we've talked about don't concern you, the Voltra is honestly great. There's no subscription. In a minimalist gym setup, this is the pinnacle. You're able to keep things interesting without needing a ton of equipment. If you don't have a lot of space for your gym, if you're traveling a lot, maybe you're a coach or in a physical therapy setting, or if you just want the newest and best gadget, this may be good for you. I do not care how you spend your money as long as you're happier and healthier for it. And I think this can make sense for a lot of people. Let me know what you think though. Thanks to our Patreons, and thanks for watching.